Guys, and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about The Good Doctor Series 1 episode 17 and 18, which are the last two episodes in this season. So yeah, I hope you enjoy my thoughts and opinions, and as an autistic woman I absolutely adore this series. It's been absolutely amazing. I've been absolutely fixated on it. I've watched every single episode back to back to back to back. So yeah, I hope you enjoy these final two episodes in this season, and season 2 will be starting next week. So look out for that on the Good Doctor playlist on my channel. So, episode 17, let's get into it. So on episode 17 we see Dr. Murphy, or Dr. Sean as everybody knows him now. He's the resident doctor with autism and savant syndrome. And in this episode we see him with Dr. Glassman, who was the hospital president, and he is no longer the hospital president. So we see him trying to set up Dr. Glassman with the canteen lady. He wants, because he knows that them two are romantically interested in each other, and he tries to set them up. But what he doesn't realise is the inappropriate professional boundaries between the hospital president and someone who works within the canteen section of the hospital, and the professional boundary that comes with being responsible and being a junior resident doctor, and how to communicate with people effectively. Again, this is a barrier for people on the autistic spectrum like myself, and this is all my own thoughts and feelings as one on the autistic spectrum myself. Sometimes I don't realise the boundaries of what I should and shouldn't do, and as someone who plays an autistic doctor in this programme, he should know where the medical boundary is and where the professional boundary of friends and crossing that boundary is in general. So again, it can cause him problems with his employment and problems with Dr. Glassman, and potentially further colleagues down the line who find out about his professional conduct. So then we see Dr. Murphy go into the medical scene, into the ER as they call it over there, and he's talking to a patient about the risks of surgery. And as him being on the spectrum, he was about to tell his patient about not responding to making forced decisions, and about the risks of how severe this surgery could be for them, and how they could potentially die or things like that. And again, Dr. Murphy gets himself into trouble with that. So then he goes and sees Dr. Kalu, and Dr. Kalu becomes one of his best friends in this program. Dr. Kalu is also a very, very knowledgeable doctor. He has Sean's back. He's very, very supportive of Sean's decisions with regards to treating patients and the way that Dr. Murphy sees the world. Being a autistic savant, Dr. Murphy is able to see things a hell of a lot differently than his neurotypical colleagues are, and he's able to sort medical situations out before they arise. And also during surgery, if something goes wrong, he's like, no, you have to do this, do this, do this, do this. And they're like, what do you mean? We've tried that, it's not going to work. And he's like, no, you have to do this. So again, he's able to fix the problems that can come into that situation. Again, it's about having appropriate boundaries and relationships, because again, on the spectrum we are very observant, we are very logical, factual people, and again, relationships can be tricky because we don't know how to read the person's body language, or we might not know how to help that said person. So again, it can be difficult to read body language and be empathetic and sympathetic to the person's cause or the situation. So again, they go and treat this patient, this girl, and this girl has a condition where she can't smile. So she always looks miserable. She's always like... And Dr. Murphy and Dr. Kalu are trying to make her smile for the first time after not being able to smile. And what they did was they took a gland, I think it was from her hip or her waist, something like that, and they put it into her face so that it stretched so that she could smile and actually feel good about herself. And obviously he told her about the risks of infection and different things like that. And then the other doctor was like, no, why did you tell her that? Like, no, you shouldn't have done that. Like, you crossed the line and you frightened her and you tried to make her not have it. And he was basically saying, look, I'm truthful, I'm autistic, I'm on the spectrum, and I was telling her about the risks that could ensue with having this surgery, because she'd have face numbness, she could lose her eyesight and such things. So again, it's about being honest, but again, knowing that boundary of professional medical person, as well as becoming more attached to the patient. So again, it's about building that rapport with the patient, and he's very good at doing that. He's very good at providing trust and empathy and compassion, and he's able to make his patient understand the risks and the benefits of both the surgery and the outcome of what they should do after they've had it. So again, Dr. Murphy then goes home after his shift on this episode, and we see him meeting a new neighbour in his block for the first time, in the apartment block, and he understands that his new neighbour knows that Sean is a bit different, is not the same as the neurotypical people around him that Dr. Murphy puts himself with, and his neighbour starts to understand he has a disability, that he sees things differently, and that he's a little bit odd or withdrawn, and he understands that, and he starts talking to Sean, and he basically then, towards the end of this episode, the neighbour turns on Sean and starts abusing him, takes money from him, steals the TV, steals the food, and Sean trusted that guy. Sean trusted him to be a friend. So again, that is where we fall into mistrusting people, and where we fall to be vulnerable and victim potentially towards people, because they see it as a way to use our disability as a weakness against us. So again, that winds me up, because I'm seen as vulnerable. I'm seen as someone who has had the mick taken out of her. I've been bullied in my past. I've been told that I'll never do anything, and people will just be like, oh, well, you're a bit odd, you're a bit weird, you know. And yeah, so I can relate to him on that aspect. So that series, that is episode 17. Episode 18, let's get into it. So in this episode, we see again Dr. Glassman and Dr. Murphy talking to each other, and Dr. Glassman has to sit Dr. Murphy down, and Dr. Glassman on this episode admits that he has cancer, and it's very, very terminal, and he's very, very, very sick and hasn't got long to live. And as we know, people on the spectrum don't like change or sudden bad news, or something that's going to take them a while to adapt, process, work through, you name it. And Dr. Glassman sits Dr. Murphy down and explains that the cancer has come back, that it's terminal, he has between 12 to 18 months to live, as the tumour in his brain has increased, and he tells him not to tell anybody. So again, there is that medical boundary. Does Sean go and ask for help or support, knowing that Dr. Glassman has said, please, 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 please don't tell anybody? But at the same time, how does Dr. Murphy cope with this bad news and the change of knowing that his carer, I guess best friend in this program, is dying and isn't going to be around for the foreseeable future? But I think in another way why Dr. Glassman told him not to tell anybody was because that he is scared, he knows he's dying, he knows it's going to be very, very quick, that his death will progress, and he doesn't want Sean to be stressed out. And then Dr. Murphy goes to tell another doctor behind Dr. Glassman's back that Dr. Glassman is dying. Again, this is crossing medical boundaries, because Dr. Glassman specifically said to him, do not tell anybody, and Dr. Murphy couldn't hold it to himself. He felt he needed to go and talk to another colleague and tell them that Dr. Glassman is dying, that his cancer has spread, he has a tumour in his brain, that's making things incredibly difficult. So again, this is a breach of medical consent and trust and confidentiality. Again, Dr. Murphy then starts to become confused and distracted within surgery. I think this is because he was still processing the news of Dr. Glassman. He was still very much about the fact that he was dealing with bad news, that he knows someone close to him, as registered as a parent, as a friend, as a professional, is not going to be around to help him out with communicating, because obviously Sean is on the spectrum. And when we struggle and we lose someone who is close to us or becomes family, and that person is taken away from us either through death or through a loss of friendship, or the friendship breaks down to a point where you are no longer communicating, then that becomes a way of self-destruction and shutdown. So for Dr. Murphy to then start doing like his stimming, and he's kind of breaking down the sensory overload, and I can pay attention to that, because when you do get a lot of information and you're sat there and you're told your best friend is dying, how hard is that for him? Because he's having to process the fact that his best friend is dying, he's got 12 to 18 months to live, and yet he's having to be a surgeon still, he's having to treat patients, he's having to go into a room that smells funny, he's having to deal with body parts, he's having to dealing with someone's life and having that life in his hands. And it's difficult because we're on the spectrum, and that empathy goes into overdrive, and that compassion goes into overdrive, and it's very, very difficult for us to control that. So then Dr. Glassman, as a treat, decides to treat Sean to take him away from that stressful environment, that they'd go and play on the carousel. And a carousel to us in the UK is a fun fair. It's like the horses, the spinning around things. Basically, Sean gets very, very sensory overwhelmed on that carousel because you've got the noise, you've got the spinning, you've got the voices of people talking, people's phones going off. So again, that's not the most practical environment for Dr. Murphy. And Dr. Glassman should have thought that beforehand. He shouldn't have took Dr. Murphy to an environment where it was going to sensory overstimulate him and make him panic and make him see things that are all fuzzy and everything else. And then he talks to Dr. Murphy when they get back home, and he says about, how can I help you? Help me to understand what you're going through. Tell me about the pain. And Dr. Murphy is able to show a bit of common sense and dignity and respect and compassion for a man who is dying and is in these final weeks of life. And again, this is a good question. Do people with autism feel empathy? Yes, we do. And it's bullshit to say otherwise, because people always say to me, well, you don't get empathy, Gemma, you're autistic, you're on the spectrum. Rubbish. I feel so much more empathy than you know I do, and you don't give me credit. Me and Dr. Murphy show so much more empathy, it actually kills us to control it because we don't know how to express it in a way that is often safe or appropriate to do so. So again, then he goes to talk to Dr. Resnick. And Dr. Resnick has made it clear she doesn't like Sean at all. She's very against him. She doesn't think Sean should be a resident doctor or even a junior doctor. She thinks that Dr. Murphy is a risk, and due to his autism that he's not responsible or can't think straight or can't make judgments. Again, it's because she lacks knowledge. She's very hypocritical, judgmental, she's harsh, and she treats Dr. Murphy like he's an idiot. And that really, really winds me up because we're very, very intelligent people. And I think that over time she starts seeing his capabilities, his medical judgments, his logic, his sense, his structure of order, the things that he can see that are happening before surgery. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing my review. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll be back next time. Bye guys!